What if Hitler got accepted into art school? In our own timeline, Adolf Hitler tried to go to the art school of Vienna, but he was rejected. For the following years he lived on the streets of Vienna, where his anti-Semitic views began, until 1913 when he moved to Germany. The following year WW1 began, and he conscripted. After the war he joined the German Workers' Party, and quickly became its leader. He also renamed it into the National Socialist German Workers' Party, NSDAP. In 1933 he became Chancellor of Germany, and 6 years later started WW2. But what if that didn't happen? What if in an alternative timeline Adolf Hitler got accepted into art school? In this timeline he is an artist in Vienna, and without living on the streets he might not get in contact with anti-Semitic newspapers, which were the foundation for his racist views. WW1 still happens, but he joins the Austro-Hungarian army, most likely the Imperial Royal Branch of the army. He would either fight the Russians in Galicia, or Serbs in the Balkans. It is both possible that he survives like in OTL, but also that he gets killed. If he survives the defeat of Austria, and harsh terms of the Treaty of Saint-Germain-en-Laye would anger him massively, and he would join a far-right party. For example, the Christian Social Party, which later becomes the Fatherland Front. He might still become its leader, and take over Austria as the Fatherland Front did take power in Austria in 1934 after a 4-day civil war. But compared to Germany, Austria is just small and weak. They couldn't really defeat their neighbors Czechoslovakia or Italy, and he might be forced to join an alliance with Mussolini. But the biggest change happens in Germany. Without Adolf Hitler, the German Workers' Party probably never rises to power, and the Weimar Republic never ends, as after the Great Depression ended in 1933, the nation would restabilize itself. Saarland would still vote to join Germany in 1935 by a landslide. In 1937 Japan still does the war against China, and gets sanctioned. But since there is no war in Europe they can't take their colonies, and in 1942 make a peace deal with China, where the US were a neutral mediator. In the end China has to recognize Manchukuo and Menjiang, but Japan has to return their other gains. Italy would still invade Albania, and Abyssinia successful. But they would lose against Greece, and in 1941 have to give them the Dodecanes, and have to grant Albania independence. This would anger the Italian population, and a civil war breaks out from 1941-1944, in which the liberals overthrow Mussolini, who would get executed. During that civil war Ethiopia successfully gains independence, and the Senussis retake Libya. France and UK might also take the Italian colonies in the Horn of Africa. During the end of the war South Tyrol voted to join Austria, and Istria voted to join Yugoslavia. On September 10, 1944, 25 years after the Treaty of Saint-Germain-en-Laye, Austria holds a referendum to remain independent or join Germany. The majority chose the latter. UK and France would probably be worried, but Germany still has a limited armed force of 100,000 men, and no air force, meaning they aren't really a threat to them. The Cold War never happens as China and Eastern Europe aren't communist. This would mean that the US, who are still isolationist, won't overthrow governments in Latin America or in the Middle East. Vietnam and Korea also would never get partitioned. Colonialism would end much later, because there is no WW2, and it is probably bloodier as the Europeans won't just grant their colonies independence. Stalin dies in 1953, but it wouldn't be Khrushchev who succeeded him as he became popular because of WW2. It is most likely Mailkov or Beria succeeded him. The US probably still collapses in 1991, but because of Poland owning the west of Belarus and Ukraine, they are quite smaller. Yugoslavia still collapse, but they won't have their modern-day borders, but rather something like this. Hungary also might want to annex Banat. There is no North Atlantic Treaty Organization, so wars in Europe might be more common. For example, a bigger Greco-Turkish war over Cyprus, in which a pro-Turkish government is installed in all of Cyprus. Turkey would also annex the Dodecanes, Crete, the Aegean Islands, and northern Epirus. Bulgaria might also join to get Thrace, and also at one point take Macedonia from Serbia. China meanwhile would quickly industrialize after the war, and would go to war against Japan, this time as the aggressor. In the Treaty of Harbin that ends the Third Sino-Japanese War, they annex Mengyang and Manchukuo and Puppet Korea. The Soviet Union might join to get South Sakhalin. In this timeline, India is probably balkanized as their independence was far more chaotic. I think that the Republic of China, the Imperial State of Iran, and USA would try to expand their influence in this region. It is possible that Israel might not get formed without WW2, and that Palestine controls this area. Nowadays Germany is the third biggest economy in the world as they own territories in the east, and didn't experience communism. The US are far more isolationist, and without them interfering in the Middle East, radical Islam might not rise, meaning 9/11 doesn't happen, causing the Afghanistan and Iraq war don't happen. The Taliban either way controls Afghanistan, and Iraq is more stable, but under Saddam Hussein. Overall, in this timeline there wouldn't be a Second World War, but the second half of the 20th century might be far more chaotic than in our own timeline. Leave a like under this video if you liked it, and don't forget to subscribe. Goodbye.